I titled this presentation, Disabusing Disability, Paralyzed but Now Powerless, but Not Powerless. We want to give voice and power to those of us that have been doing this work, to individuals that recognize that their voices, that their bodies, that their minds are just as valuable, just as needed, and can contribute just as much to society. But I even come to this conversation from a point of humility, because for most of my life, this is how I then defined myself and my power. I was an academic All-American athlete, played basketball, soccer, lacrosse, track, ended up being a one-sport athlete in college, captained my track team for the last 2 years, and almost took time to go to the Olympics. Running in leaps and bounds and jumping into the sandpit, feeling as though that power is what gave me value. Feeling as though then going from Stanford University to the University of Michigan for medical school, and then continuing to further my educational academic pursuits, that if I was able to graduate and then match into a top orthopedic surgery residency program at Yale, that then I had power, I had value. I had my Nigerian family full of physicians and lawyers and all sorts of people with multiple letters behind their names, not just because my name is Oluwafenromi Oyedeji Okanlami, not those letters, but the MD letters afterwards, the PhD letters afterwards in our family, that then made people think that that is what gave us value. That is what gave us power. But then what do you do when you look like this image on the left? What do you do when something comes and changes your life that literally and figuratively robbed me of what I felt all of my power was? I then started to experience life from the other side of the stethoscope, as I say, seeing the world through a lens that I had been an individual taking care of those people with disabilities as an orthopedic surgery resident, but I had no understanding of what that life was. I may have seen them in post-operative visits, checked on their incisions, talked about their lives, but I had no idea how they put their socks on, how they drove, how they had sex, how they traveled, how they got around, how they spent time with their loved ones and family, did their jobs. I did not know this world, yet I thought I was an advocate and a physician that was taking care of that same population. Now, I say I come to this with humility because I tell people that the past may not be your fault, but the future will be. So once your eyes are opened and you are then educated about the disparities and the iniquities that exist, about the inaccessibility of our world, about the prejudices that are still being imposed upon people, what are you as individuals going to do? Each and every one of us has the ability to then move the needle within our spheres of influence. Changing the world will take time. With every individual working within their own sphere, it does not take as much time as you might think. And so while the past may not be your fault, but the future will be, each of us can change the future such that the people we interact with have a better tomorrow than they did yesterday. And so I had the opportunity at the other images that you see in this slide to be able to return to a life of medicine after having 2 surgeries at Yale and then going to do inpatient rehabilitation. I was blessed to encounter individuals that knew life from the other side of the stethoscope, that took care of individuals living with paralysis and allowed me to know that I had not been robbed of my power. Now, any physics geeks that want to then know, we talk about how energy is never destroyed, it just changes form. That power just changed form for what I previously thought was my power, to then manifesting that, harnessing it and using it to then do good in another space. People did what I call assumed competence. They gave me an opportunity to demonstrate what it was that I could do, instead of limiting me or judging me based on what they thought that I couldn't. Without people that still looked at me because of who I had been before and said that we still think that you can. Without my family and my friends and the supporters in my corner who continued pushing me, without my faith that let me know that I was fearfully made, those were the things that kept on driving me, but not everybody has that. That is why the advocacy in this space is so important. That is why creating room for employment is so important. That is why making sure that health and wellness and research to then find the cure, the care, the community, and connecting them around this paralysis experience is so important. Because I was blessed with these things beforehand and didn't even realize that I was going to need them at some point in my life. I did not know that this is where I would be sitting here today in my power wheelchair in my home office, speaking to you all during the 2021 Reeve Summit about this very important work. Still going and trying to see patients and being able to use this standing frame wheelchair or any other chair and demonstrating that, yes, I can be a physician with a disability. Yes, I can be an athlete with a disability. Yes, I can be a teacher and a dad and a doctor with a disability. Is something that not enough people have seen. I am not the first or the best or the only by any chance, but I just know that I have been given some power to be able to then make change and affect change within my own sphere of influence. But I say that as part of my story, not only did I return to medicine, but I had an opportunity to then create equitable access to physical health and wellness for students with disabilities at the University of Michigan. And I love our institution. And while we have come a very long way, I will say that we, as well as other individuals and institutions, still have a long way to come in terms of providing these equitable opportunities. Because as an academic All-American athlete, I was able to see what resources were provided for student athletes at Stanford and other Division I institutions across the country. I saw the fact that student athletes had to then manage their time management, school, work, and travel, and all of these things to be able to then reap the benefits of being a student athlete at those institutions. Now, we do not have enough programs across the country that provide that same access for student athletes with physical disabilities. As the interim director of our Services for Students with Disabilities office, I know that we provide the educational accommodations for disability-related barriers for able-bodied athletes. Yet we did not have the same accessible opportunities for sport and fitness for physically disabled students. Now, that is something that, while I acknowledge it may not be the fault of all the individuals sitting in their seats currently, once again, when given the opportunity to see that something should be the case, what will you do to make sure that it is the case tomorrow? Now we have an opportunity to continue to expand those spheres of influence, to make a difference in this world and make sure that people's tomorrow is better than their yesterday.